the webinar series here. Yes, this is the fourth masterclass of the webinar series for the Regeno project. Regeno is an Erasmus Math project that see different partners for Europe getting together and talking about regenerative economy. The partners are Foscari University of Venice, UVic, Central Catalonia, Institut Miles Telecom Business School, France, NALED, Belgrade, Serbia, Trinity College, Dublin, Ireland, University School of Economics and Business, University of Ljubljana, the University Industry Innovation Network, Netherlands, and University of Applied Science, Münster, Germany. So thank you all for being here. A couple of technical informations. If you have questions, please use the question and answer chat that you see at the bottom of the page on the Zoom bar. If you have technical questions regarding audio or inability to see or hear or anything, please write in the chat. And now I leave the floor to Cinzia, who is gonna present us the subject of this webinar class. Thank you.
Thank you, Samuela. Thanks, everybody. So first of all, I would like to thank all participants and especially my Foscari students for attending this masterclass. This masterclass is about ecosystem value creation and thinking. Before get into the topic, let me briefly introduce myself for those who don't know me. So my name is Cinzia Colapinto, and I'm a professor of strategy and entrepreneurship at the Venice School of Management of Ca' Foscari since 2010. In the last 5 years, my research has been focusing on two specific aspects: sustainability and digitization, and of course on the, we can say, collaborative methods that facilitate these complex transformation. We all know that we do face complex challenges nowadays that require a systemic approach. And this is the reason that this class is about ecosystemic value creation. How is organized the masterclass? So in the first part of the meeting, it's up to me to talk to you and try to present some theoretical concepts and models. But then I will let the stage to more interesting debates. And we are going to talk to people who live and contribute to the implementation of regenerative concepts. So, as you can see from the slides, we will have Daniela Pavan, that is from Ca' Foscari Pink. Then we will have the interview to Mark Tosi, who is the founder of Heima. We will talk to Matteo Silverio, the founder of Rehub Glass, that is located close by Venice, that is Murano. Then we will have a pre-recorded interview. We want to thank Elena Bertè from Barilla Group and especially my team member Lucio Dalla Pozza for leading this interview. Let's get into the topic. So by now, most of the participants to the master classes and to my course know that when we talk about regenerative economy, we want to push actually actors to go beyond neutrality. We know that the meaning to be regenerative is to make a so-called net positive contribution. So we do not want just to maintain the status quo. In other words, what we want to say is that regenerative approaches, actually, they do aim for complete and complex system changes that they go to address and to cope with the root causes of the current global challenges that we are all living. Before we go to talk about value creation, we want to try to, anyway, be clear on the main core concepts that are related to regenerative economies. We all know that the core concepts that do relate to the environment and well-being, so the relationship with nature. We know how important and how relevant is to rebuild social capital in order to try to improve quality of life for people, try to improve the first concept of well-being. The role of resources is important. We know that we want to use resource in a very efficient way. We want to minimize waste. That is actually the most relevant challenge, to try to be efficient and effective for companies. And we want all companies to try to have a so-called long-term orientation. We want companies to try to go for resilience and for sustainability. Again, we reinforce the idea that when we talk about regenerative economy, we talk about the so-called net positive. But what is really the core of today's presentation is the last concept, that is the element of actually collaboration and collaboration between different disciplines. Because we know that as an ecosystem, we know that different actors, different elements, they have to be taken into consideration, and they have to move in a coordinate way. They need to interact to try to be actually very collaborative. Indeed, what we know that nowadays, the need for coordination among market, societal actors, political actors is really important. They need to agree. They need to debate what is the depth and the breadth of changes that are needed nowadays to address the current problems. And we know that this transformation from extractive to regenerative economy is a very complex one that requires the contribution of very different actors. So, what we can say about value and value creation. So from the label of the class is quite clear the centrality of value creation. And indeed, value creation can act and is acting as a glue among all the different actors of the ecosystem. We know that the core of business model of a firm, of a university, is actually the value proposition that, of course, can attract at the beginning a partner to join a specific ecosystem. But what is really an attractive element is actually the potential for new collaboration, new connection within the community that will actually create an ongoing value creation. So it's the constant development and the nectar ties that generate value inside the ecosystem. So the idea is that collaboration is needed because that can create value that is not easily attainable or gained when all the actors, they do act in an independent way. So in this way, we can even create benefits for all and each partner. The idea is that is interested to understand why this happens. Because collaboration has to be an attitude and has that will lead each actors to think in a larger way beyond itself, to try to embrace this so-called regenerative approach. So it's an idea that all different actors, they have to move together and they have to interact with each other. But let's try to see some data about collaboration. So if we refer to recent Ernst & Young sustainable study, we can observe that 96% of companies leading on climate change, for instance, they have established or are in progress of creating partnership to address climate change. Again, an interesting number, 97% of companies leading on climate change have already partnered with a direct competitor. This is an even more interesting data. And indeed, we can agree on the fact that we do live in a context, in a scenario where firms, they do tend more to collaborate than to compete. And this data, they do confirm this trend in a specific, we can say, regenerative context. So the call is that organizations have to come and work together. Let's see. Okay. So to what we can say about ecosystem orchestration. Orchestration is a key concept and a key term that we need to take into account when we want to unlock the circular and even more the regenerative economy, because collaboration has to be shaped through what we can call orchestration. So what we know is that to achieve resource circularity is essential to solve different problem of waste, problem of greenhouse gas emissions, or overconsumption of resources. And this will help us to try to generate value. But what we need to do is that we need to try to move from what is known as a classical linear value chain to a much more complex and dynamic value chain, where we orchestrate all the involved resources, and we try to bring this unique ecosystem in a specific path. So how we can do that is that we can see that embracing more dynamic commercial models will allow company to really embrace regenerative concept. We know that to be successful, company, they need to decompose and recompose their structure. In this way, they will be able to adapt on a constant way and to generate new models. This is what we will see can emerge from the interesting stories that our guests will share in few minutes. So this is really important to understand that the orchestration is a key concept to take into account when we see different actors, different people, different stakeholders are on the table. This will lead us to talk about the ecosystem actually thinking. So what is evident is that we need to shift towards a new and alternative approach of delivering value. And we need to move away from this linear focus on specific products or specific services to a much more holistic approach. We need to move towards a so-called holistic understanding of how companies, customers, suppliers, but even the government, university, they can connect and can exchange value. So this is actually the key aspect that we need to take into account. This seems quite complex, and we can observe that we can refer to specific tool that will allow us actually to better understand the ecosystem and to better understand how position ourselves and how can we move towards a more regenerative approach. One of the actually tool that I think are quite relevant is the value network mapping, the value network maps. So what we see is that we can try to describe the webs of relationships that are between the different actors that are actually in the ecosystem, and they do transfer, exchange, share, co-create resources and value together. So we can see this set of connection that we can describe in a visual way. Visualizing this will allow us to better understand many elements, how we position ourselves, who is the predominant actors, who has a position of power. So we can try to understand how all the different actors of the value network, they can modify, change, adapt their business model, and how this business model interact with the actually value ecosystem business model, and how everybody can find the win-win position. So how every single actor can benefit from the entire group. So how every single actor can contribute to the definition of the value proposition for the group. If you remember, what we said is that the reason why an actor will join a specific ecosystem is that because the value creation is actually larger than the value that can be created in an independent way. So what we can do using this kind of tool, this kind of maps, is that we can actually identify power structure that might be actually perceived that can act barriers to address and solve the current problems that can be defined. And depending on different cases, we might have that these barriers are based, or this power structure are based on information sharing, or are based actually on, we can say, rules or rules enforcement, so the role, for instance, of our public actors. But when we can visualize all these elements, we can better actually answer to different questions. We can, for instance, try to understand the position power, as we said. We can try to understand which actors actually are receiving more resources, or which actors are giving more resources. And we try to elaborate and understand why this is happening. Or we can even observe why a specific actor is much more disconnected from the network. And again, why is this the case? We need to remember that all of us and every single actors actually is part of a system. And the system actually is molded, shaped by our single action, our single decision, and by the interaction among all the actors. So if we are able to, for instance, picture ourselves in the value network map, we can try to better lead every single actor, and ourselves as well, to take responsibility of the action. Given the interesting aspect of value network maps and ecosystem, as I'm an academic, as I'm a university professor, I have tried to look at system innovation and system changes, focusing on a specific aspect, that is the role of universities. And I try to better understand how university and university professors, they have to change and adapt to try to answer to the call to move towards what is a cross-scale, multi-stakeholder collaboration that is required by regenerative economics. One model that I like to refer to is the quite well-known triple helix model and its development. So we know that the triple helix model focuses on three specific actors, so state, academia, and industry. What is interesting is that we have moved through the decades to a model where each single actor is acting in a hybrid way, is trying to actually adapting its vision and missions to answer to the more complex challenges posed by the current scenario, and try to interact and collaborate. So there is a kind of overlapping in terms of duties, tasks, and missions between the three actors, that they try to generate innovation, starting from actually the observation that is impossible for each actor to try to solve and to cope with this challenge in isolation. So we do not look, for instance, at the university as ivory tower, where university professors, they do tend to talk to each other. They tend not to listen to the needs of industry and of the market, and they tend not to try to collaborate with the government. But what I do find more interesting, actually, is to try to see, to observe the extension of the triple helix model. So there are models, the quadruplo and the quintuplo, but we talk even about the n-plo helix model, that they enlarge and extend and are much more close to what have we discussed till now, because they take into account other actors, and they tend to take into account, for instance, the demand side, and they try to say that the media-based and culture-based public and civil society, they have a role nowadays in actually creating knowledge and in applying knowledge beyond the limits of the single actor. So the idea is that we, the quadruple helix model, try to include the demand side perspective into the model. That is quite relevant. For our perspective of the regenerative economy, actually is more interesting to take into account the quintuple helix model that brings inside the natural environments of society. So what is interesting is that we include the perspective of the knowledge of society, the knowledge of democracy, as actually a co-evolution where we try to take into account nature and the challenges of climate change, of regenerative economy, because we know that every single actor will have actually an impact on nature. So we try to understand that the necessary socio-ecological transition that we are all living in 21st century requires to include this fifth helix into the system beyond the demand side, beyond the civil society. So we try to see that these natural environments of society will be kind of a crucial driver or a spark element of innovation in the next decade. So this model will point out on main aspects that we move on what we already said from a mono-disciplinary approach to a multi-disciplinary research setting. We move towards a very hybrid behavior of different actors and institutions. We move away from the linear value chain to a much more holistic approach where we have iterative processes of innovation and where we see actually a co-creation approach will be actually at the core of the innovation process, where we see the collaboration with private and public sector, where we see the role of consumers in the co-creation of value of companies, and we see the so-called hybridization of behavior of the different actors. This concept, and this is actually the last that I want to bring on the table, is the concept of open innovation. We link this concept to Chesbrough, and we see that this is quite related to this idea that we need to go beyond the boundaries of the single companies, of the single actors and institutions, but we needed to think about new business model where we do not really distinguish between internal and external ideas and knowledge, but we co-create knowledge, letting a free flow of ideas and of people. So we try to maximize the use of knowledge, try not to keep it inside our boundaries. So if we want to see visually, as we said, the visual is interesting, we try to actually move away from the paradigm of a closed innovation system where who is owning value creation, who is owning innovation is quite clear, and an asset of co-creation and a different distribution of value in a so-called open innovation paradigm. So I hope that this introduction has supported you to be more aware of the role of ecosystem. But as I said, in order to better explore the topic of value creation with a kind of a systemic approach or systemic thinking, we decided to let people who live and implement regenerative concepts to talk. So the common thread among all our participants actually will be the idea that we need a plurality of actors, of stakeholders to the table to cope with very important challenges. So let me interrupt the sharing and let me invite the first speaker, Daniela Pavan. Welcome, Daniela. Daniela actually wears a double hat because Daniela is a research fellow at the innovation designer at the knowledge transfer office of Foscari, and she's also a consultant in the marketing and communication for M9 Museum in Venice, and has participated to many research projects at Foscari. So I would like to ask this interview, Daniela, briefly, if if you want to briefly introduce and add something about yourself, of course. And then if you try to actually analyze regenerative concept through a much more social perspective, and if you try to apply this to Venice, that is the city that is hosting this masterclass.
Definitely. Thank you, Cinzia. And good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today with all of you, actually, to share some concept that I think can be very interesting for this conversation, because I agree with you, Cinzia, with what you said about the concepts and the ideas that comes to mind when you think about the regenerative economy meanings. Usually, the first ideas that people might have refers to nature and environmental regeneration. However, the social capital and the value creation that comes out from this is very important, in my opinion, as well. And I agree with what you said earlier about the importance of multidisciplinarity and collaboration. And I think that what we're going to share today together has a lot to do with this as well. But before we move forward, I would love to share a concept that I think fits very well with this context. It's the concept of change. Let me quickly share my screen on that. So let's see if I can do this. Yes. The formula that you see on my screen now was elaborated in the 80s by Catherine Dunmill, and it's about a product, basically a formula that defines how we can gather change. Basically, change comes out as a product from three different factors: D, V, and F. What are they? D means dissatisfaction. V means vision of what is possible. And F is the first concrete step towards what the vision says. If what comes out from this formula is bigger than R, so resistance, then change is possible. So to adopt change, of course, we need to work through influence and through strategic thinking. However, this formula can be definitely applied to any kind of organization, including cities. So let's go here to what you also asked me to discuss about. So how can we talk about regenerative economy social-wise in Venice? Let's analyze the context of Venice through the three factors of change. So dissatisfaction. First of all, we live in an era where there are a lot of challenges that our planet is facing. One among all is climate change. And all these challenges are becoming bigger and bigger and are related to the behaviors that all of us are taking in a daily basis. Canadian photographer Edward Burtynsky, in one of his exhibitions called Anthropocene, actually reported very well through photography the human footprint on our planet and the consequences of it. This reported to Venice is shown on these two pictures. On the left, you see a picture of an empty Venice taken during the pandemic emergency. On the right, you will see a Venice full of people, packed of tourists mainly. That is a more recent picture. That said, dissatisfaction. Dissatisfaction in this case is connected to one of the biggest urban challenges that Venice is facing. So the fact that there is an over-tourism challenge that the city is currently dealing with means that a lot of services are built considering that they need to be useful for visitors. Let's say that grocery shops are closing to leave space to shops for tourists or also for kids. There are no outdoor spaces for them to play because all of them have been occupied by tables and chairs of restaurants and bars to give a service to tourists. All of this, of course, leads to another challenge, that is the population. The city of Venice, the island, currently counts less than 50,000 dwellers, as you might already know. And this because people are basically leaving the city to find other places that are more welcoming for them to stay and live and grow. From this big challenge, basically, what kind of vision can we build? So factor number 2. The question for a vision is, how can we redesign a more sustainable Venice? How can we work to regenerate the city? So if we think about the meanings of the word sustainability, we can read it from 3 different lenses: social sustainability, financial sustainability, and of course, environmental sustainability. So if we take the first layer, so the social sustainability layer, and start leveraging on it to identify a potential vision and ask ourselves, how can we create a city that is more welcoming for dwellers and become able to welcome and to allow new residents to come and live and build a life in Venice. Definitely, we can also have as a consequence an advantage related to the other 2 dimensions, because if we have more people living in Venice and become new dwellers, they will be somehow new minds able to generate new ideas and potential new business models. And this means that ideally we can increase the verticals that the city can work on. Currently, the main vertical is related to hospitality and tourism. However, there is a lot of potential for new ideas to come to the city and become potential new business and new models that can be integrated within the current one. And this might change also the way the people live in the city and somehow interact with it, with a consequence on the environmental meaning of the word sustainability. Because if you live in the city, you become able to respect it, not only for its beauty, but also for its fragility. If you are here temporarily, it's a different thing because your responsibility is partial. That said, it's important to talk about what kind of first step should be taken. In this case, not too far away from now, because by the end of April, the local governance here has stated that as a first step to try to contain the over-tourism challenge, there will be this access fee that will be pilot tested for some precise days from April until mid-July. Will it work? We don't know yet. However, in my opinion, and also for what I've seen so far during our research path together with Foscari University, the idea of a first step should stay in putting people at the center of the thinking process and being able to consider how people can generate value. That said, I would like actually to share with you a couple of additional insights that come from an article that the Financial Times published in 2021. The title of the article was "Can Venice Reinvent Itself?" but it could be very well translated into "Can Venice Regenerate Itself?" It brought, and it still brings to the table, a lot of interesting insights and ideas because it investigates how Venice over time was able to change and to adapt to change thanks to Venetians. Starting from 1423, the first big pandemic emergency of history, Venice had more than 40 deaths per day. And what did Venetian do? They built the first quarantine station of history that still exists, Lazzaretto Vecchio. And now it's a symbol of the resilience of a city, but also of its dwellers. On 1797, Napoleon came to the city and invaded the Republic of Venice. Population dropped from 170,000 people to 96,000. So this was a another big change because people left, but then they maintained the connection with the city, and they tried to identify potential new ways to come back and rebuild their identity, and that happened. To get closer to our times today, 1966, the biggest acqua grande ever, the high tide, to get even closer, 2019. Probably all the people here might remember that. The second, let's say in terms of dimension, worst acqua grande ever. And even there, Venetians tried to stay, to fight together for the city and for themselves. So what I want to say with this is that a city, and Venice in particular, is an ecosystem and a network made by people. So a community that should be leveraged as an important pillar to develop visions and first steps in order to move forward with a positive change of regeneration, socially speaking. Hope I replied to your question.
Yes, thank you, Daniela. As I know that you have been involved in a specific research project about social regeneration of Venice, I would like you to try to describe the methodology that you use, and if you can even share some of the main takeaways from this research project.
Absolutely, yes. Actually, a lot of these thoughts and insight that I shared were part of this specific project that you mentioned, that is Urban Good Camp. It's an Erasmus Plus project that basically we were part of from 2021 until 2023. We participated as Ca' Foscari University with PINC, so the Knowledge Transfer Office of Ca' Foscari that I'm part of as innovation designer, as we mentioned earlier. And then we engaged also with the Department of Management, today Venice School of Management, thanks to the EQUIS accreditation, and the Department of Environmental Sciences. We were part of a big consortium, so other cities were involved, and they are the cities that you can see here in the slide on screen. So from Paris to Madrid, from Porto to Ljubljana, and from Amsterdam to Helsinki. And the main goal of the project was to identify for each city the main important urban challenges and potential ways to engage with the local communities in order to co-design potential solutions. Why am I also bringing this concept to the table now and connected it to the concept of change? Because the formula for change is actually a way we worked with on the project itself, because we started from the dissatisfaction, so the urban challenges, to then move towards a vision that brought us to develop, let's say, a relationship with our local communities. And eventually we got to our first concrete step that for us was a training program that I would like also to share a little bit in detail with you in a couple of minutes. But before getting to that, let me also add another important point, that is the role of universities in all of this. What came out from the project and what is a value that I think it's very relevant for this conversation is that university have also a very important role as facilitators of relationship among the different stakeholders within the local communities they're part of. And they become basically platform for co-design and collaboration for urban sustainable ecosystems, while at the same time designing innovative learning environment that can be open to everyone, not just students, but also local governance and the local community and the local businesses. So the way we worked on the project and the methodology we applied is well summarized on the slide here on screen. So we decided to work using the methodology of design thinking in one of its variations. So the double diagram model, that is the one designed on the slide. Specifically, our process was divided into 3 main steps. So step 1, we developed this community of innovators by building bridges, because we analyzed and find out what the real dissatisfaction, especially for us in Venice, were. So we, through a very thorough desk research and a lot of interviews done with different kind of stakeholders in the city, we identified the 3 main challenges for the city related to the word sustainability. So how can the social sustainability related to the over-tourism and the population, the environmental sustainability for the lagoon, and of course, the financial sustainability of the city that at the moment is based only on one vertical, that is hospitality and tourism. That said, we came from step 1 to step 2, defining the challenges and basically identifying a potential vision. That for us was the main question: how can we redesign a more sustainable Venice? We did that through horizon scanning and through the creation of specific communities with different stakeholders who then engaged with each other. And eventually, we identified the first concrete step that for us was the creation of the U-Camp training program that in Venice became the Urban Innovation Bootcamp. There was and is actually a multidisciplinary approach, and this refers very well to what you said earlier about the importance of multidisciplinarity and collaboration. It's a multidisciplinary training program that combines frontal classes and lectures with design thinking workshops and site visits, with the goal to give a challenge. It's a model challenge based. So with the goal to give a challenge to participants in order to let them work on it and develop creative confidence and potential ideas that can be really applied to the local ecosystems they are working for. And this has been kind of an interesting experience for us, but also for the other cities, and allowed all the different teams actually to exchange the ideas from a city to another and see how maybe a solution that was studied for Venice could have been customized or applied also for other cities. The model itself was studied as a sort of standard framework for the consortium that then, though each city applied in a personal way according to the different characteristics of each of the city and the institutions involved.
And challenges. Thank you, Daniela, for your answers. So we move to the next actually speaker. Tosi actually had a personal issue, so he's not with us today. He's very sorry, but we will arrange a future interview and we will share the video with all on the Regenerative platform and with all participants. So let me introduce Matteo Silverio now. So thanks, Matteo, for being with us today. You are the co-founder of Rehub, that is an innovative startup based in Murano. And my first question for you is that we might define Murano as a kind of a urban ecosystem concept. And according to your experience, I would like to better understand if you think that it's possible to try to generate value for the island using a kind of a collaboration approach that involves multiple actors.
So first, thank you to invite me here. Let's introduce not myself, but Rehub. Basically, Rehub is an innovative startup based in Murano, who try to give new value to all the non-recyclable glass waste produced either within the island, but also, by the society, let's say. This is a good question, Scott. Referring to the helix diagram, you mentioned three actors, which is academia, industry, and state. Academia is on the city, is within the island, and it help and support the research and development, and also to tackle the new challenges. We have here basically two main challenges. One is waste management, and that it's why Rehub was born in a way. And the other one is the energy challenge, especially referring to the amount of gas that everyday glass factories need to burn in order to melt the glass. I guess that the only way to create value in urban regeneration here in Murano is to share knowledge, and also to let people and stakeholders understand that we are sharing also challenges. You mentioned during your lesson an important sentence that I really noted. It's collaborating rather than competing. Murano, it's a really competitive island. Okay, they usually don't share knowledge, neither they share business. Okay, they are. This is a kind of a historical issue. I'm not gonna explain why, but they don't really like teamwork. But once you start talking and interacting with all these stakeholders, all the glass factories, and you start sharing with them that we are sharing again challenges, they will eventually start opening their doors. So the first thing is the first thing is dialogue. The key word is dialogue. You have to dialogue to create these shared moments in order to involve people. Of course, academia must do its part, and the state, which is, and referring also to the Daniela's work, is maybe the part who is missing in all this system, especially to Venice in general.
Thank you, Matteo, for your answer. Going deeper on this sense, I know we met before, we talked even by the role that you are kind of an external actor that was able to make people open the doors, and especially you mentioned the role of glass masters, and I'm interested to better understand how you were able to try to involve them into the ecosystem value creation.
Step by step. I'm a foreigner. I'm not Venetian, neither from Murano. My first step on the island was more or less 10 years ago. And I'm lucky because I've been lucky because I had a kind of Trojan horse that introduced me basically on the island. Okay, again, they are really closed. They are not really open to new, sometimes to new ideas and new people. So the first thing is to have someone that introduce you, and then again, dialogue. You have to dialogue with people. You have to open your also, let's say, heart to the people to let them understand that your ideas and also your intention are good. And then you have to let people that we are all sharing the same challenges. Again, they all have the same problem. They are main two, which is waste management and energy, but they think that they can tackle and fix this problem by themselves, which is impossible. So you have to work in team. I started with the workshops, also supported by academia, again, and then with exhibition. So exhibition is a moment where everyone does something, let's say an art piece or whatever is needed, and together we perform an exhibition. Okay, so you have to share and you have to work in teamwork, and the key point again is dialogue.
Perfect. I like that you point out this this relevance and this crucial role played by communication that is at the core of the ecosystem, actually, relationship and interactions. And I would like to close your talk with a specific question. You already mentioned at least twice the role of university, of research in your value creation process, but I would like you to point it out more, and if you can even share something with us in terms of the role of community in creating value in this regenerative perspective.
Again, academia it plays a crucial role here in terms of first technology transfer, which is important. We are, the challenge, the challenges here are quite complex, okay, and they need, as a consequence, complex solutions. Academia, from this point of view, can really play a huge and important role. That's why also both with the Foscari and you also the University of Venice, the design part of the Venetian University Academia, we are working hard to share know-how, to transfer this know-how to not only to the glass factories, but the community. So all the level, say. Why community? Because in Murano, again, it's a special place where the business and the personal effects are more or less the same. Okay, there is a lot of interconnection, a lot of people are within the same family. So it's important to involve community, because community is another way to talk about glass. Okay, community here is glass. Business is glass. Everything more or less is glass. So you have to involve community. You have especially to involve younger generation, which is important. So sharing and also organizing events with high school, preschool, I guess it's really important in order to promote also a different way of working and looking at the business and the glass in general, in order to make a change.
Perfect. Thank you. Let me try to connect your talk with the one by Daniela. And I think as they are both located, the challenges in Venice, what is interesting from your talks is that it seems that there is a need really to create bridges between the island and between people. So the idea that, we cannot be in isolation. So this idea that bridges are needed, overlapping are needed, is quite crucial for this ecosystemic approach and development. I think it's really important that isolation is not the solution to create value, and so that collaboration has to be the key point. So I wish to you both all the best for your future endeavor and challenges. And we are going to move to the third speaker. As I said, we have a pre-recorded actually interview to Elena Bertè. She's an agronomy researcher at Barilla. And let me share my screen before. Okay, so let me try to. Okay. Okay. Let me try to move away this. So she works along with the agronomy team, and she carries out research projects to develop and test efficient, innovative, and regenerative farming practices in order to try to improve soil health, biodiversity, and productivity. So let me again thanks Lucia Dalla Pozza for leading this interview. And here we are.
Elena, can you tell us how, as implementing a regenerative approach, impacted Barilla's core business model?
As a world-leading food company, our mission is offered to people the joy and the pleasure of the good food, making high-quality products. but our commitment extends also to a sustainable production and supply chain from the field to the table in respect of people and planet. Barilla has been committed to sourcing raw materials from sustainable sourcing chains for years. And in this context, we developed a code of sustainable agriculture and also 5 disciplines for sustainable cultivation. For example, Carta del Mulino, that is dedicated to the production of our bakery product under the brand Mulino Bianco. Or, for example, Carta del Basilico or Irish Charter and so on. But agriculture and cultivation system have evolved over time, and we are introducing a principle of regenerative agriculture impacting most the Mulino Bianco brand. The ambition is moving from the current agricultural model that is based on the reduction of chemical inputs, reduction of CO2 emissions, and the conservation of biodiversity, to a new model, a regenerative one, that is based on the restoration of soil health, leveraging on the substitution of impacts, on the sequestration of carbon dioxide that is present in excess in the atmosphere in a permanent way in the soil, and the promotion of biodiversity.
Was Barilla driven by any environmental concerns or any social responsibility, or, I don't know, other factors?
For Barilla, using high quality and sustainable raw materials is not just a prerequisite for competitive production, but is a social and ethical responsibility. We will continue the path that we undertook several years ago, improving sustainable agricultural projects, improving farmers' socio-economic condition, while further deepen regenerative agriculture. We are also aware about our role in tackling climate change, and will contribute to it through specific decarbonization projects and also investment.
Has this motivation evolved over time, or is still the same?
I think that if you take the path of sustainability and regeneration, you cannot go back.
Right.
Our commitment and motivation are expressed over time by dedicating more and more resources in terms of research and innovation first, involving a growing number of farmers and training and empowering them.
In our regenerative project, we highlight that a regenerative approach should have many forms of benefit. Can you share some concrete example of the positive impact your regenerative practices have had on environments or communities or other stakeholders?
Yes, of course. As we know, as you probably know, the soil organic matter in the soil is a key factor in sustaining soil fertility, in sequestering greenhouse gases, and reducing soil erosion. In this regard, an accurate estimation and monitor of the soil organic matter in the soil is crucial to measure and track benefits of sustainable land management. So between 2021 and 2022, 950 soil samples were taken in the northern Italy and in France to compare 3 different types of agronomic management: conventional farming, organic farming, and agronomic management according to the Carta del Mulino rules. These three types of management have been compared about their ability to preserve organic matter in the soil and to promote its storage. Well, the results provided clear evidence that the fields managed according to Carta del Mulino have significantly more soil organic matter than those managed in conventional organic way. About these results, there is a scientific publication that will be published soon, we hope, and that now is in a peer review phase. So we'll hope that it will be available for all the scientific community soon, very soon.
Okay, thank you. And we are all waiting for this publication by Barilla. So let me try to point out some elements from these interviews. As you can see, regenerative economy actually involve action and require a call to action from individuals, from government, from the public system, as well as from SMEs, startups to large corporations. So it's a transformation that will involve and will ask the intervention of every single actor. As is an ecosystem, actually, we know that we need all to change to make a big change. And this will be very interesting to observe how this new challenge, this new approach will be developed and implemented in the next future. So I will open the floor from questions. If you have any questions, you can write it in the chat. Let me see, I try to open the chat. Let's see if someone... So we have been so clear. So if we do not have any question, I take the chance again to thank all participants, especially Daniela and Matteo, who were able to share their thoughts and experience with us. And I would like to share an information. Let me try to share again my screen. Okay, we know that you are all welcome to follow the next webinar that will be actually on Monday. So next Monday, April 8th, there will be a masterclass about living system and eco-design principles that is held by our partner FH Monster. So if you're interested and want to hear about real cases and studies from experts across different fields, please enroll and participate. I thank again all participants, and for my students, we see back in class next Monday. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Cinzia, and goodbye, everybody.